By the way, there are a bunch of photos of mocks and other LEGO-related artworks on these slides. Where possible, I've given the credit on the slide where I can find it. This is actually just a really cool painting that I have had on my computer a couple years. I couldn't find it again online, so I apologize to whatever person way out there in the world painted that, because the tomato paste or the Lego bricks falling out. I couldn't find the credit. It was too cool not to use. So, for those of you who were here last year, we had one of what I thought was the best keynote speeches ever by Olivia Donoghue. Things, or what she called adages, that she had learned from LEGO, life lessons that she learned from the community. And I thought her talk went so well, I would basically steal her structure. I got permission to do so. But I'm actually going to do something a little different. I'm going to go speak about 5 things, or what I'm going to call lessons that I've learned, or at least I think I've learned, about LEGO, how LEGO works, and in particular about thinking about LEGO as an art form.
See, it's not just me screwing that thing up.
Yeah. Well, okay, so lesson 1, LEGO is not a toy, right? And we know the line from the movie, but I actually mean something a little different from what Will Ferrell's character means here. He's talking about the complexity of LEGO, but actually all I mean to point out is that LEGO isn't a toy because in a certain sense we do the work, right? There's a sense in which LEGO is like this great con, right? You know, you get the bicycle, you know, the parents get the bicycle out like Christmas Eve and they have to put it together and they complain, right? But LEGO, they ship us an unassembled product and we're like, oh yay! LEGO bricks, but here's the key part, LEGO bricks and other elements are a medium with which we can build toys. And that was the original intention, was to build toys out of them. But you don't get a toy in the box. You get a bunch of parts that you build, put together and make a toy. Right? The bricks themselves are not toys. And LEGO sets are kits that provide the raw material, the media, and instructions with which we can build the toys designed by the LEGO company. Right? But you don't actually get a toy in the box. You get the materials to build one. Did I skip one? Okay. Nope. That's right. Okay. But once you realize that LEGO is not a toy, but it's a medium with which you can build toys, you realize you can also build lots of other stuff out of it, right? So just my self-serving self-quotation from the introduction to the book, which is why I'm up here, because this book came out last fall. So this is myself and my co-editor, Sandra Bacharach. LEGO is special in part because it's a building tool, one that opens up a new world of possibility for the builder. And as soon as we appreciate that LEGO is a tool for making things, we can see how it gives rise to a whole new way of appreciating these brightly colored little bricks. For tools can be used to make toys, and tools can be used to make tables, but tools can also be used to make art. Suddenly the domain of LEGO covers not only what is in our ordinary quotidian world, but also encompasses the world of art, a world that ends only at the limits of our imagination. Okay, that takes us to lesson 2. LEGO can be used to make art. I promise the lessons will get a little deeper as we go along. Because I think most of us here know, I mean, we've been in the room, right? We know we can make art with this stuff. So once you realize that LEGO can be used to make art, by the way, I hope I'm not stepping in front of the slides too much for you guys over here. Yell at me if I do. A number of questions arise. So the first question that arises to me as a philosophy professor who thinks way too hard about everything, right, is what are the different ways that LEGO can be incorporated into a work of art? Okay, by the way, I have a prize for whoever can identify that work of art to me. That's the one I didn't put the credit on the slide, if you know who the artist is, and bonus if you know what the title of that artwork is. It's a UCS X-Wing encased in orange resin. So if anybody knows who did that, it's actually somebody relatively famous, like in the real world. Later, if you figure out who it is. All right, so what are the different ways that LEGO can be incorporated into a work of art? Well, I identified 3 different ways that this might happen. One is the first one, also I'm going to use fancy terminology because that's what us professors like to do, right? So I'm going to call it artwork authorially LEGO. If LEGO bricks and elements were somehow used in the production of the artwork, right? You somehow used LEGO when you're making the work of art. I'm going to call an artwork constitutively LEGO. This sounds very fancy, but I don't have examples, so don't worry. If Lego bricks and elements are in fact part of the artwork is made out of Lego bricks. And I'm going to call an artwork semantically Lego if the Lego bricks and elements contribute in a substantial way to the meaning of the work of art. Right? And what the work means as a work of art depends on the use of Lego. And by the way, you should notice if the work of art is constitutively Lego, if the work is actually made up of Lego bricks, then clearly it's also authorially Lego. Right? If the work of art is made of bricks, then clearly bricks were incorporated and were used in the production in some way. But this is much looser than this, right? Okay, so those are the three things. By the way, for the math geeks in the room, right, if it either can or can't be any of those three ways, that would be 8 possibilities, but if we ignore the one where it's none of those and we take constitutive implies authorially, at least 5 possibilities, so I'm gonna have 5 nice examples. So here's a work that's authorially Lego, but neither constitutive nor semantic, and it's not the thing in the picture, okay? But I want you to imagine this is a camera mounted on a little Lego base that can roll around, right? And I want you to imagine like a photograph, it was an artwork that was taken with that camera on that stand. That would be an artwork where the making of the artwork involved Lego bricks, but not in any particularly interesting way. Right, so that's what I would think of as just merely authorial, right? You use Lego bricks, but who cares, right? It's neat that you did it with Lego bricks. All of us Lego fans will probably think it's pretty cool. But thinking about the artwork, the photograph you get, it's not particularly interesting. Okay. Things get a little more interesting when we get constitutive artworks that are made up of Lego bricks, but where the Lego bricks don't really contribute to the meaning of the work in a particularly deep way, right? So an example of this, I think, is most Lego mosaics, right? And the reason I actually put this particular mosaic on this slide is that's one of my mosaics from a number of years ago. And by saying what I'm about to say about Lego mosaics, I want people to keep in mind I'm not denigrating Lego mosaics or these sorts of Lego artworks in any way. They're super cool. I spent almost a decade doing pretty much nothing but building mosaics. But I don't think that the meaning of this artwork, I think it's probably an artwork, but I don't think the meaning depends very much on the fact that it's made of Lego. The fact that it's made of Lego is kind of a technical achievement to get it to look this good with 6 colors of various shaped bricks. But in terms of the meaning of the artwork, I could have done this with pastels, and the end result would have kind of meant the same. It would be saying something about Halle Berry, right? It's, Lego versus pastels or paint here was just a choice of medium, and I picked my favorite medium. But there are other artworks where the use of the bricks contributes to the meaning of the artwork in a particularly interesting way, I think. So here's actually one that's really interesting. So this is a photograph, maybe it's titled On the Run, but it's this collaboration between Nathan Salaya, who many of you may know. He's not here this year, is he? No? Oh, that's too bad. And a photographer named Dean West. And if you look closely at this, and this is up on the screen, you're not going to be able to tell. The artwork is the photograph. It's the photograph that gets sold in galleries and stuff. And this is a real photograph, but the red dress is actually made of Lego bricks, right? It's all red Lego bricks. She's holding it to herself, and all that. It looks like it's flowing, but that's really just built out of 2x4 bricks, right? But it's far enough back, you really have to stare to realize that. Right? And I think there, right, notice it's authorial. Lego bricks were involved in the making of that photograph. Remember, the photograph is the artwork I'm interested in. The photograph is not made of Lego bricks. Right? It's not a mock in the sense we use the term. But the use of the Lego bricks does have something to do with the meaning of the photograph. The photograph is saying something about appearance versus reality, and the use of Lego bricks instead of a real dress is part of that. I think it's important to understanding the photograph. All right. Then we get on artwork that's neither authorial nor constitutive, but still semantic. This is a street artist from Israel, I believe, Jane Ames, 72 Ames. He does a lot of graffiti and street art, it's all minifig theme, right? There's no Lego was used in any way in the creation of this piece of street art, right? It's just paint on the wall. I mean, he gave blanks to the minifig to make sure he's getting it right, but that's not very interesting. But the fact that he's representing people as minifigs in all these various scenarios he does his art in matters, right? That he's drawing people shaped like minifigs rather than like normal people matters to the meaning of the graffiti. Okay, so those are different ways that you might use Lego in art. Hold on. And finally, we get the sort of most solid one. It's where you have a work that's both made of Lego, right? It's constitutive, but it's also the use of the Lego means something, right? You couldn't have made an equivalent artwork out of, stone or something. So this is an artist, Olafur Eliasson's Cubic Structural Evolution project. It was a museum exhibit where he just put on a bunch of white bricks, and the public came and collaborated on these sort of city-sized, or these cityscapes. And the artwork has to do with construction, architectural design, things like that. The use of Lego bricks matters. And the artwork is this collaborative thing that people would build on site. Okay, so there are lots of different ways that Lego bricks might be incorporated into artworks. All right, there's another question, right, that one might ask about art made out of Lego, or art that involves Lego somehow. And I actually think the second question might be more interesting. Right, if we're looking at what I call semantically Lego art, right? Lego art where the use of Lego in one way or another is important to the meaning of the artwork, right? Well, what kind of meanings are those going to be, right? What kinds of artworks are the ones that where the use of Lego really makes a difference to the work as an artwork, really plays an important role in how we understand the artwork as a piece of art. And I've looked at a lot of Lego art. I've been giving presentations on these sorts of themes for about 12 years now. And I found some themes that seem to pop up over and over when people use Lego in one way or another in art. So the first theme, and this is one probably people will be familiar with because Nathan Sly's work gets a lot of attention, is exploring the socially or I do speak for a living. Exploring the socially or psychologically constructed nature of much of the world and much of ourselves, right? The idea that a lot of what we take for granted out in the world is socially constructed. A lot of what we take to be ourselves is a construction that we then project out or perform to people, other people. And I think Nathan Sly's sculptures, and in particular this one, really hit that theme, right? The person as a construction, right? And so I think that's one that pops up and is interesting in Lego art. Hit it now. There we go. Theme number 2. This is a pretty controversial work. Lego actually donated the bricks for this and then was very unhappy when they found out what the artist did with them. What this artist is, Miguel Rivera, I'm probably mangling his name, he built these concentration camp sets, and it was a whole series. I mean, he didn't actually produce them in mass and sell them. These are actually in the permanent collection of one of the museums in Poland. He's a Polish artist. And what he was trying to do was contrast the lighthearted, childish, or trivial, these sort of attitudes we attach to toys in general, and Lego in particular sometimes, with very serious and tragic themes, right? He's actually making a statement about how we were in danger of forgetting how important and how awful the Holocaust was, right? He was using these Lego sets to sort of push that message. Right? So that's another thing you see a lot with serious Lego art, is sort of contrasting the childish, the toy-like with very, very serious themes. The third theme is just examining formal issues of scale, color, shape, etc. So there's this Valentino Fialdini does these micro-interior photos where it looks like this giant multicolored hallway in the photograph, but it's actually this little Lego build about that big that he's just photographed very cleverly. Those are just 2x4 bricks and stuff, other size bricks in the build. And there's just exploring color, shape, really cool photography. So it's sort of a formal exercise. Theme 4, and won't surprise a lot of people, is exploring architectural form. I think a good example of this, relatively recent, is MVRDV's Porous City, which is this huge display by this architectural group in Europe of these just sort of abstract architectural builds that were meant to be sort of modeling the way that they saw the future of European architecture and design to go, or at least how they would like to have seen it go. It just worked. There we go. Theme 5, and this is one of my favorite Lego artists, is investigating the nature of construction and building materials, also juxtaposing the crumbling and old with the vibrant and new, right? And Jan Borman's Lego bombing, where he goes to these crumbling buildings in typically Germany. He's actually traveled around a lot and done in other places, and fills in the cracks and the holes with these Lego constructions. There are a number of other people doing Lego bombing as well, but I'm pretty sure he was the first one to do it, or at least the first person to do it and get any notoriety. And then a sixth theme that I've noticed in a lot of Lego art is contrasting plastic and artificiality with nature and sustainability. So this Canadian artist, Thibaut, I'm sure I'm angling it, Mallet, does these wooden minifigures. They're about 10 inches tall, totally handcrafted. All the pegs, everything that holds it together is wood. They're pretty cool. I wish I could afford one. They're really expensive. So those are some themes I've seen. So I want to get now to lesson number 3. Purity doesn't matter except when it does. By the way, lesson 2 is the longest, Brian, in case you're worried about time. Okay. So a lot of Lego enthusiasts worry about purity. I've been in big arguments about purity, but I think if we're thinking about Lego creations as artworks, I think purity doesn't matter most of the time. By the way, this is my favorite fake Lego set of all time, Star Wars. I don't like other brands, like the rip-off stuff from, like this. I hate it because it's bad for Lego and it's illegal and all sorts of reasons, but I really want that one, just that one. So if anybody finds it on one of their travels, bring me Star Wars. Okay, so why doesn't purity matter? Why is it okay to use Mega Blocks or Creo or Tycho or whatever bricks might have what you want? At least from an art perspective, why would it not matter? Well, I think that there's a nice analogy with a paint-by-numbers set. So let's say, I think Lego sets are in relevant senses, at least for this purposes, analogous to paint-by-numbers sets. So you buy a paint-by-numbers set, you can use the materials and instructions to create a painting designed by the corporation that produced the set, right? You can pull out the canvas, the lines and the numbers, pull out the tubes of paint, do the paint-by-numbers set. But you can buy a paint-by-numbers set, and then nothing's going to stop you from taking the canvas, ignoring the lines, ignoring the numbers, and painting whatever you want to paint. That's kind of what we do. We take the Lego set and ignore the instructions and build our own creations. Right? There's an analogy there. But notice, no one would question you, right, if you opened up a paint-by-numbers set and said, oh, there's not enough green in here, I'm going to buy a couple different shades of green, and you bought paint that was by a different company from the corporation that created the paint-by-numbers set. Nobody would get upset at you, right? I think the same thing is working at work here with Lego sets, right? There's no reason that's relevant to judging the work as an artwork. Nothing relevant to what the work means or how it's going to affect people as an artwork or storytelling or whatever it is, to stop you from using whatever it is that you want to use, right, product-wise. All right, that being said, there are 2 exceptions to this. The uninteresting exception, which is that not all bricks are made equal. And sometimes when you're making really big builds, if you use very, very low quality bricks, they will crack open and bleed to death. Lego bricks don't actually bleed, but it's a cool mock, so I thought I would throw that one up there, right? Sometimes the quality of the brick matters. Of course, if you're trying to do a curved wall with 1x2 bricks, you might be better off using Tycho bricks because they flex more. You can get a better bed. I mean, it just depends on what you're doing. There's an interesting exception, though. Can everybody still hear me? Am I holding the mic up? Okay, we're good? Okay. And the interesting exception is when you're building an artwork that's directly addressing the Lego Corporation, right, or Lego itself, rather than the brick system more generally. So a really good example of this is the Greenpeace video, right? It was protesting Lego's involvement with Shell and their Lego re-upping their contract with Shell, right? It was a stop-motion animation using Lego bricks. If Greenpeace had said, oh, we're going to save some money and use Mega Blocks when we make that video, it would not have had the same aesthetic effect, right? It needed to be Lego bricks to send the right message to Lego, right? Because the video was about Lego. That was the meaning of the video. So it had to be Lego bricks, right? So that's kind of the interesting exception, right? Sometimes the message requires you to be using Lego bricks. Okay, lesson 4, minifigs tell stories. Okay, so I want to get into a kind of different way to think about art. And there's a sculptor named Jason Freeney, and I love his stuff. He does some really cool Lego stuff. So I've been talking about Lego, art out of Lego, kind of like, I've been showing a lot of sculptural stuff and mosaics I talked about a little bit. But I actually think that's, in my opinion, not where a lot of the really interesting Lego art happens. I actually think a lot of the really interesting Lego art happens with minifig builds, right? But I think we have to change the way we think about Lego as an art form. And we have to realize that a lot of what's in the room down there, we can still admire it for its the technical proficiency of the build. It's not like the form stops mattering. But a lot of what's going on down there, I think, is storytelling. I think a lot of what's going on down there is in much deeper senses than I think some of us realize that at a certain level, but in a very deep sense, we're telling stories. What we're doing down there is much more like writing a novel than it is like sculpting a sculpture. Okay, and I think this is something we need to take even more seriously than we already do. Yeah, Mark's very happy about this. Okay, but then we need to think about what kind of stories are we telling? How does this work? I think Lego's kind of interesting in this respect. So let's go through a few examples. All right, so Lego's created some farm sets. And by the way, one of the essays in my book, so I edited the book, it's got about a little over 20 essays by different philosophers, including one by me that I'll mention at the very end of this talk. And one of the essays is Small Farms, Big Ideas, Lego Farm and Agricultural Idealism, that examines the way that farms are represented in the Lego farm sets. All right, and they're corporate farms, but they're very, very happy. You don't see like lots of people getting sick from chemicals, or there's no slaughterhouse with dead pig parts lying around. They tell a very particular story about what farming is like. Right? But that's not the only story one can tell about farming. So here's a mock called 24-Karat Vertical Urban Farm by Chris Goddard that's a very different kind of farming, sort of a sustainable urban kind of farming. Right? So he's telling a very different story about farming than Lego is. All right? Second example, I said minifigs, but mini-land scale works here as well, or any kind of figures and storytelling you might be doing. Mini-land is telling a certain kind of story, right? And in fact, again, we did that examined in another essay in the volume The American Archipelago, During the Nation of Mini-land, USA, by Samantha Boardman. Mini-land is actually very strange if you think about it. So you're a tourist, right? You go to visit one of the Disney parks. But then you step into Miniland to pretend to be a tourist visiting the entire USA, or sometimes large parts of the world recreated in this mini scale. So you're like a tourist pretending to be a tourist. It's very, very strange. But anyway, there are particularly interesting ways that America is represented in Miniland, right? They don't spend a whole lot of space exploring the flyover Midwest, right? It's all sort of East Coast and West Coast monuments. Very exciting stuff, and it portrays a particular picture about what's important in the United States, and of course, the mini-land depicting other countries do the same thing, right? It's not like they try to do some statistically averaged out slice of life and a little bit of everything. They focus on certain things at the expense of others. But that's not the only sort of story you can tell with mini-land scale. For example, we know about Mini-Con, right? Where, unlike Lego, we're telling a story about the nation and monuments and architectural things. Mini-Con is where we use the mini-land scale figures to tell a story at a convention about ourselves, right? We're sort of in this very cute way recreating at the convention what we're doing at the convention. It's a very different kind of story to tell, right? And I think a nice way of thinking about what's going on is that by the way, this was the makeup thing. I put this because you need to know about this, because it's super creepy. There's a makeup company that did this lifelike minifig, and they went and scared the crap out of people at San Diego Comic-Con a couple years ago. Go find the video. It is one of the creepiest things you'll ever see. It's a minifig, so I figured I could throw it up on that slide. Nobody would care. But minifig mocks or mini-land scale mocks, I think, are a kind of fan fiction, right? They tell stories of, we use minifigs to tell stories about ideal farms, idyllic towns, impregnable castles, insane space pirates, whatever it is. But what's important about those is we tell the stories we wish Lego had told. Right? If Lego had come out with sets that already told that story, we wouldn't need to build that mock. We'd build something else. Right? We're telling the stories we kind of wish Lego had told. And as a result, I think our stories that we tell with minifigs can be usefully understood as being told against the background of the stories that Lego tells in their official sense. And is extending those stories, or sometimes radically rejecting those stories in favor of a different sort of story. Right? I think that's a really fruitful way of thinking about minifig builds. And fortunately, there's a lot of academic work on fan fiction. This is sort of the key first book, just came out in the 20th anniversary edition a few years ago, by a guy named Henry Jenkins, who's like the academic professor, like god of fan fiction studies. And he points out fan fiction is the way of the culture repairing the damage done in a system where contemporary myths are owned by corporations instead of owned by the folk, right? And I think that's right. I think we use minifigs to tell the stories we want to tell, the stories we wish Lego had told, right? Because sometimes we don't like the stories Lego has told, right? Or we think there's stories that they've left out that need to be told. So, to sum this bit up, there's an interesting way that we can read minifig scale, mini-land scale, etc., MOCs, as a kind of resistant storytelling. These creations, at least some of them, propose an alternative narrative that contrasts with the official, family-friendly, non-military, idealized, apolitical story told in official LEGO sets, right? The LEGO Shell video is a vibrant example of this sort of thing, right? The Green Beast used minifigs and other LEGO elements to tell a very different story from the one that LEGO, at least at that moment in time, LEGO did the right thing in the end, but that LEGO wanted to hear, right? Okay. But this leaves us with two interpretive tasks, right? If we want to start thinking about this as an interesting way to understand at least lots of, maybe all minifig builds, first is we really have to figure out what the stories being told in official LEGO sets are, right? We have to go and look at LEGO sets as a kind of storytelling and say, what sorts of stories is LEGO telling us in the sets, right? I already mentioned two chapters in my book that already break some ground on this, the chapter on farms and the chapter on Miniland, really analyzing what it is that LEGO is trying to tell us in the kinds of stories they're telling with these sets. And then, of course, we need to identify the ways that our own creations and the creations of our friends comment on, interact with, reject the various kinds of stories that we see in the LEGO sets. So I want to mention really quickly one last way we might look at the story being told by LEGO and then the sorts of stories we tell. I'm titling this Lesson 5, Color Matters. This is 2 whole slides about my chapter in the book because I didn't want to just harp on my stuff. I want you to go read the book and go read my chapter. And what I mean by color, of course, is race, right? LEGO has, just like every other company, I think, for all their good intentions, and I don't think they've ever been sort of overtly on purpose racist, but they struggle with race sometimes. Part of that is just well-intentioned, but in retrospect, really, really not good moves like this one, where they molded the Native Americans in bright red plastic. But there are more interesting issues about race and about the kinds of stories that LEGO is telling with regard to race in the sets. And in particular, LEGO is particularly interesting because they basically are telling 2 different stories about race. In the city sets, in the pirate sets, in the non-licensed sets, all the minifigures are yellow, right? Until recently, right? But most, it's always been the case that they were all yellow. LEGO was telling a story about a world where there was no such thing as race, right? People didn't have a color in that world. They were all yellow. They were all the same, right? Philosophers would call that an eliminativist account of race, where race isn't a real thing. But once the license sets come around, right, they got the second world where race matters, because often race matters to the characters in the licensed stories that they're adapting, right? So they had to create, minifigures with the various flesh-colored tones. But if then you start to juxtapose those, and you figure out there are these 2 very different stories about race LEGO is telling, and we have to figure out which one we like better, or how we want to react to these 2 very different stories. And I think this webcomic that I talk about in the essay by Tak Toyoshima, again, apologize if anybody knows how to pronounce his name, and I'm mangling it as bad as I probably am. So I'll read the text because it's probably too small for most of you in the back to see. One magical Christmas Eve, and there's the castle figure and the Kobe Bryant figure. Hark! Art thou not ye Kobe Bryant LEGO? You a reporter? Nay, I am the evil LEGO. Thy hide is brown. Yeah. It matches the hide of your people. Should not my hide too matches the alabaster color of my kindred? And so clearly the yellow minifig thinks he's white at least. Well, they only made brown people for us NBA Legos. Everybody else is yellow. There's only one group happy with the way things are, and of course then you've got the ninja minifigs laughing their asses off, right? Now, to be fair, it's the sort of joke that only an Asian American cartoonist could probably get away with, right? But it sort of plays up this contrast between the 2 different stories about race that are being told and how things can go very awry if they get mixed together. Right? Another place where they get mixed together, by the way, is the Lego movie that has both yellow characters and flesh characters, right? I mean, in a weird sense, Wildstyle and Batman are this very strange, racially mixed couple at the beginning of the Lego movie because he's white and she's yellow plastic, so has no race, which is kind of bizarre. So anyway, that's sort of the things I talk about in my essay, but that's another way we might think about the stories LEGO is telling and how we want to think about our own MOCs as reacting to those stories. For more about any of this, go on my book. Finally, I should mention it's not just my book. I co-edited it with a good friend of mine, Sandra Bacharach, who I went to graduate school with 20 years ago, and this was finally the first time we found a project we could work together on. And then there's some thank you to lots of you who I've talked about these issues with over the years. I'm done.